I will now give the floor to the World Uyghur Congress. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the World Uyghur Congress to bring the forum's attention to the worsening situation facing Uyghurs in China. Uyghurs continue to be subject to highly restrictive policies in terms of religious freedom, freedom of movement, assembly rights, and adequate means of legal representation. As it stands today, the only legal religious practice that remains for Uyghurs.
Okay. Hay un llamado de atención por parte de China.
China has drawn attention I invite you to stick to the content, not the procedure.
Mr. Chairman, World Uyghur Congress is a notorious anti-China separatist organization whose goal is to split Xinjiang from China. And that organization has been long-term engaged in masterminding an organization of anti-China separatist activities. The organization is intricately linked to organizations such as the Islamic movement of East Turkestan, identified by the Security Council as terrorist organizations. Minority foreign participants should abide by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. It should not be abused by separatist elements. Should not allow the organization to be present in this forum. Separatists should not be abusing the forum for separatist activities to call for separatist activities in violation of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the member states of the UN. China would like to reaffirm the forum should not be abused by separatist elements. Therefore, China would like to request you, Mr. Chairman, to stop the statement of this organization.
Suiza tiene la palabra.
Switzerland, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, sir. Very briefly and most respectfully, I'd like to ask delegations to respect the right for civil society to participate in this forum and to allow the speaker to finish the statement. Also, the special rapporteur said that the Secretariat should be addressed concerning right of reply.
There's a request for the floor from Pakistan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. My delegation supports the point of order raised by China. Thank you.
I have a request for the floor from Cuba. Thank you, President. I believe that the reminder from the Special Rapporteur this morning was very clear, and at the same time, we also need to bear in mind that the forum should not be used in any way to deal with separatist issues raised by organizations or persons as mentioned by the delegate from China. They might even have terrorist intentions that has even been documented. Therefore, we support the statement made by China. Thank you very much. We have a request for the floor from Venezuela. You have the floor. Thank you very much, President. Good morning to everybody. Venezuela supports the contributions of civil society to the mechanisms of this Council on the basis of dialogue and cooperation, which are the fundamental pillars of our work. However, it is completely out of order to have mentions that are not in accordance with the spirit of this space to raise allegations against states in this organization, particularly from NGOs of the type that was trying to bring to this room a message that is not in accordance with what is being discussed in this forum. Therefore, we would ask, President, that you urge speakers to stick to the mandate of this important forum. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Representative of Venezuela. We have a request from the floor from Austria.
No, Ireland.
Sorry, Ireland first, please.
Mr. President, I'd like to lend my voice to the comments made by my colleague from Switzerland. It's very important in the context of this dialogue that NGOs do have the right to take the floor and that they do have the right to deliver their statements. We therefore respectfully urge you to let the speaker continue with their statement. Thank you.
And now I give the floor to Austria.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very briefly, to second the points made by my Swiss and Irish colleagues, I don't believe that the accreditation is within the competence of individual member states of this forum. So we would like to invite you to let the speaker continue with the statement. Thank you.
We have a request for the floor from Russia. Russia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Sir, we have the greatest respect for all participants in the forum. We advocate equal and respectful statements from all participants of the forum, and we think all participants from states, from civil society, should observe certain rules. As we see, for 9 sessions now, every time constructive discussions and dialogue in Council face the problem of the lack of these rules, which could be observed by all participants in the forum, and this would make our dialogue today a constructive bent. The problem is that there are no such rules in the forum on minority issues, and this is the main reason for all the problems, including the issue raised by the delegation of China. In light of this, we believe that in future the forum cannot function without proper rules and regulations. Since I have the floor, I'd like to ask the special rapporteur, Ms. Ijak Ndiaye. I would like to ask her to include in the list of recommendations for the sessions of this forum a recommendation on the need to develop rules for the functioning of the forum inter alia on accreditation. We believe that it is precisely such rules and regulations which would enable us in the future to conduct constructive, calm dialogue on the substance, on the issue of minorities in the world, and not on issues of procedure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the representative of Russia. We have a request for the floor from the Egyptian delegation. You have the floor.
Chair, my delegation would like to support the point of order raised by China. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is a request for the floor from the delegation of Finland.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add my voice to Switzerland, Ireland and Austria on letting the civil society participants speak. This is a platform for open dialogue, and we have clear rules for NGO participation at the Human Rights Council that we should respect and continue the dialogue and not not this rules of procedure debate. Thank you.
Fue Finlandia que habló recién. Ok, le toca ahora a Finlandia. Hay un pedido de palabra.
We have a request for the floor from the delegation of Iran. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We would like to support the point of order made by our distinguished colleagues from China, and also the points raised by our colleague from Russian mission. Thank you so much.
Hay un pedido de palabra por parte de la delegación de Indonesia.
Indonesia has asked for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And my delegation would also like to lend its support to the point of order made by the delegation of China as well as Russia. And while I'm having the floor here, we all know that we welcome the participation of the civil society organizations as well as representatives here during the forum, but we all abide by the rules of procedures under the auspices of the United Nations. So we seek the indulgence as well as the leadership from you, Mr. President, to keep the forum to be proceed in accordance to the rules of the procedures that we have under the UN. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias. Hay un pedido.
Thank you very much. The delegation of Bolivia has asked for the floor. You have the floor. Thank you, President. I would like to ask the Presidency to strive to ensure that we safeguard the forum through a respect for the supreme principles of the United Nations. And we need to ensure that words do not go beyond these principles, and in this sense we support the motion raised by China, and we affirm that this does not deny the broad participation that we would also support, because we support minorities and broad participation. Thank you, President.
Muy bien. Siendo
Very well. As there are no further requests for the floor with regard to this topic. Apologies. I can't see it from here, but South Africa has asked for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. From the outset, let me mention that it was not the intention of the South African delegation to take the floor at this stage. However, we slightly worried since yesterday that it appears that this House is not being kept in order. So we want to, Mr. Chair, appeal to you to really keep the House in order, and also appeal to the Special Rapporteur to assist you to do so. We're also worried about all these applause that are happening in the House. We don't think that it is in line with how we ought to be conducting ourselves in these meetings. So once again, please do keep the House in order. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we have to close this debate. It's clear that in my role as chair, I have to try to make a decision here, but I'm going to try to use my common sense as much as possible. First issue, I believe that there are delegations that have said that we might need to introduce some type of criteria before the holding of the forum. This would be related to the rules that should be implemented when taking the floor, particularly with regard to when non-governmental organizations take the floor. This is not something that we can resolve today, nor should we do it today. Therefore, I believe that until we consolidate this proposal to create rules of procedure, that the Forum Secretariat and the Special Rapporteur would raise, which sets out clearly the rules. We will stick with the current rules, and the current elements that we have. Well, the NGO took the floor, followed all of the existing steps in place, and all of the measures that they need to take to ensure that it could take the floor. And I will not take away their right to the floor. We need to be clear that all of the interventions that have been made on this point show that it is clearly a controversial point. It shows that there is tension at the heart of our debate, which is very visible, not only in the statements that have been made, but also the physical aspects that we see in tensions such as this. And I would admit that we are facing a controversial issue which is as yet unresolved. I will now briefly refer, before I give the floor back to the NGO, which has followed all of the steps to come here today, I want to touch on the issue of applause. I've thought about this an awful lot, and I would like to say that we need also to think not only about what is happening, but we need to think about what really is happening and what has led to it happening. We here are looking at an issue that perhaps in 10 years will be seen as normal, but here we are in a forum in which some people are saying that within the United Nations this is something that is not usually used, because I agree, because for many decades I have participated in similar meetings, but we need to ask what is the meaning of this spontaneous reaction from the people who are participating in this forum today. I don't yet have a socio-anthropological explanation for this. All I can say is what I feel, and what I feel is what, and I've been perceiving is what happens. But perhaps within 10 years what has happened today will become normal, but there is a lot of, all the pressure falls on the shoulders of the presidency, the chairman's role, and as a result of that I will give the floor back to the organization that originally asked for the floor, but I would please ask you to bear in mind everything that has been said and that has happened, and I would like to ask that you fully implement full respect to ensure that this forum continues to be a constructive dialogue, because what we have to resolve are the issues facing the daily lives of people. Therefore, we've also said that states that raise this type of issue, please direct themselves to the Forum Secretariat to be able to find a consensual way to resolve the issue. And therefore, the NGO that had the floor before will have it again. It will have the remainder of its time. But we need to bear in mind everything that has been said up to now. Thank you very much.
As it stands today, the only legal religious practice that remains available for Uyghurs is for those over the age of 18, and only within state-sanctioned mosques. All activities outside this venue may now be considered illegal religious practice. An incredibly broad anti-terror law was also passed in late 2015 that will likely legitimize ongoing rights violations and facilitate future abuses against Uyghurs. Ensuring respect for human rights acts as an antecedent to peace and stability. It should not be a casualty to insecurity, but a remedial force. As a result of these cumulative policies, Uyghurs are increasingly fleeing China in hopes of reaching states where their rights can be adequately respected. Many have been forced to turn to human traffickers as the only viable means to leave the region through Southeast Asia. On the 8th of July 2015, 109 Uyghurs who had been held in an immigration detention facility in Bangkok, Thailand, were illegally and forcibly returned to China in clear violation of the non-refoulement principle underpinning the Refugee Convention. The UNHCR had been giving assurances by Thai authorities that those in detention would be safe from persecution, as the group made it plainly clear that they did not want to be deported. Although a delegation was sent to China in order to check on the state of those returned, no official report or statement was ever released concerning the state of the group, and their whereabouts are unknown still today. As it stands, 60 Uyghurs remain in immigration detention facilities near Bangkok, who have been held for nearly 3 years without access to legal remedy. The chance of arbitrary return to China for this group remains very high, considering many cases over the past decade of illegal extradition from many of China's neighbors. The problem then faced by Uyghur asylum seekers today must be approached in terms of root causes, as well as in terms of addressing the problems faced by these groups in situations of humanitarian crisis. We must first understand why it is that members of the Uyghur community would leave to begin with, while also ensuring that those that have already left are protected in transit. Uyghur refugees and asylum seekers must be afforded their rights under international law. Non-refoulement is not a principle that may be cast away in emergency situations, but must be upheld to ensure that most vulnerable groups are protected when they make the difficult choice to leave their homes on account of unbearable repression. We therefore call on the concerned states to allow the 60 remaining Uyghurs in Thailand to move to a third country in the best interest of all those concerned. Only through constructive and continued dialogue can genuine progress be made, and that's what we urge China and all UN member states to enter into as a first step. Thank you.
Thank you very much.